The morning air in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, hangs thick with humidity as Detective Sarah Martinez steps out of her patrol car, her hand trembling slightly as she reaches for the arrest warrant. It's March 15, 2023, and after 12 agonizing years, she's about to knock on the door that will finally bring justice to the Diaz family. The quiet suburban street seems impossibly normal for such a momentous day. Children's bicycles scattered on front lawns, the distant hum of morning commuters heading to work. But behind one of these ordinary front doors lives a killer who thought he'd gotten away with murder. "Police, open up," Martinez calls out, her voice cutting through the peaceful morning silence. Inside the house, 45-year-old Marcus Webb drops his coffee mug, the ceramic shattering against his kitchen floor like the life he's carefully constructed since that humid night. The sound echoes through his modest home as officers surround the property, their radios crackling with urgent communications. But this arrest, this moment of reckoning, began over a decade earlier, on a sweltering Louisiana night, when 20-year-old Amelia Diaz locked up Mel's diner for the last time, her keys jingling softly in the humid darkness as she walked toward her Honda Civic. The neon open 24 hours sign flickered erratically behind her, casting eerie red shadows across the empty parking lot. Spanish moss swayed gently from ancient oak trees lining Highway 61, and somewhere in the distance, a freight train's whistle pierced the thick night air. How does a vibrant young woman simply vanish from a well-lit parking lot on a busy highway? How does someone disappear so completely that even her own family begins to doubt their memories of her laugh, her voice, her dreams? And how does a killer walk free for 12 years, living just miles from where he committed his crime, watching the community search desperately for answers he alone possessed? If you want more stories of cold cases finally solved against impossible odds, make sure to subscribe, because Amelia's story will keep you guessing until the very end, and the truth is more shocking than anyone could have imagined. But before the town of Baton Rouge could even process the shock of Webb's arrest, detectives revealed that the answers had been buried in plain sight all along, hiding in a single drop of sweat on a car door handle, waiting for science to catch up to justice. Amelia Rosa Diaz bounces through the front door of her family's modest brick home on Fairfield Avenue, her nursing textbooks clutched against her chest, and her dark hair still smelling faintly of coffee and bacon grease from her shift at Mel's Diner. At 20 years old, she's juggling her second year at Louisiana State University, with late-night waitressing shifts, but her smile never wavers. Her younger sister Carmen looks up from her homework spread across the kitchen table, grinning as Amelia drops a to-go container in front of her. "Apple pie from Mel's," Amelia announces, kissing the top of Carmen's head. "Don't tell Mama I'm spoiling your dinner." Their mother, Rosa Diaz, emerges from the laundry room with a basket of freshly folded clothes, shaking her head with mock disapproval. "Misha, you work too hard," she says in her gentle voice, the same voice that will soon be pleading with reporters to keep searching for her daughter. "You should be out with friends, not bringing us dessert at midnight." But this is who Amelia is: thoughtful, generous, always putting her family first. She's saving every penny from her diner tips to help with Carmen's college fund, even though Carmen is only 16 and college feels impossibly far away. Amelia has plans, dreams that stretch beyond the steamy kitchen of Mel's Diner. She wants to be a pediatric nurse, to work with children who need someone gentle and patient, someone exactly like her. On September 12, 2011, a Monday that starts like any other, Amelia wakes at 6:30 a.m. to the sound of her mother making coffee in the kitchen. She pads downstairs in her LSU t-shirt and pajama shorts, her feet bare against the cool linoleum floor. "Buenos dias, Mama," she says, wrapping her arms around Rosa's waist from behind. They share breakfast together: scrambled eggs and toast, orange juice, casual conversation about Amelia's upcoming anatomy exam. Rosa will later tell police that her daughter seemed happy, relaxed, completely normal. There were no strange phone calls, no mention of problems at work or school, no hint that this ordinary Monday morning would be their last. At 2:47 p.m., Amelia sends a text to her best friend Jessica: "Studying at the library until my shift. Pray I don't fall asleep in my pancakes tonight. The message includes a selfie. Amelia making an exaggerated tired face, her textbooks visible in the background. It's playful. Typical Amelia humor that always makes her friends laugh. At 9:45 p.m. she arrives at Mel's Diner for the late shift, tying her apron strings with practiced efficiency. The diner sits along Highway 61, a 24-hour beacon for truckers, college students cramming for exams, and anyone craving comfort food in the middle of the night. Amelia loves the late shift. Fewer customers mean more time to study between orders, and the tips from grateful night owls help stretch her budget. Security cameras capture her throughout the evening, refilling coffee cups, laughing with the cook, wiping down tables with methodical care. At 1:15 a.m., she serves her last customer, a trucker heading to Texas, who later tells police she seemed sweet and normal, just like always. At 1:45 a.m., she counts her tips, $37.53, enough to buy Carmen's birthday present, and still have money left over. At exactly 2:03 a.m., Amelia turns off the diner's neon lights, locks the front door, and walks toward her car in the nearly empty parking lot. The security camera catches her silhouette, moving between the yellow pools of streetlight, her purse slung over her shoulder, her keys already in her hand. She opens her car door, tosses her purse onto the passenger seat, and then, the camera angle shifts away for just 90 seconds. When it pans back, Amelia's Honda Civic sits empty, driver's door hanging open like a mouth frozen mid-scream. But when Amelia didn't come home that night, her family's world collapsed in an instant, beginning a nightmare that would last over a decade. Rosa Diaz wakes at 3:30 a.m. to use the bathroom, and something feels wrong. The house is too quiet, too still. Amelia's bedroom door stands open, her bed unslept in, her backpack still sitting on her desk where she left it before work. Rosa tells herself not to panic. Maybe Amelia went to Jessica's house, maybe she stayed late to help with inventory. But by 4:00 a.m., Rosa is pacing the kitchen, her bare feet wearing a path between the refrigerator and the back door. She calls Amelia's phone. It goes straight to voicemail. "Hi, you've reached Amelia. I'm probably studying or working, but leave me a message and I'll call you back." The cheerful recording, so full of life and energy, makes Rosa's chest tighten with fear. Carmen finds her mother at 5:15 a.m., still pacing, still calling Amelia's phone every few minutes. "Mama, what's wrong?" Carmen asks, but she already knows. Amelia has never, not once in her 20 years, stayed out all night without calling. By 6:00 a.m., Rosa is driving to Mel's Diner, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turn white. The parking lot is almost empty in the gray dawn light, and that's when she sees it. Amelia's Honda Civic sitting alone near the back of the lot, driver's door hanging open, interior light glowing weakly in the morning mist. Rosa runs toward the car, her heart hammering against her ribs. Amelia's purse sits on the passenger seat, wallet intact, keys dangling from the ignition. Her work apron lies crumpled on the driver's seat, as if she'd been getting ready to go home when something or someone stopped her. "Amelia!" Rosa screams into the empty morning air, her voice cracking with terror. "Amelia, where are you?" But only silence answers back, and the Spanish moss in the oak trees rustles like whispered secrets in the humid breeze. The 911 call comes at 6:23 a.m. "My daughter? She's missing. Her car is here but she's not. Please, you have to help me find her." Rosa's voice breaks completely as she gives the dispatcher their address. Amelia's description, the terrible details of the abandoned car. Carmen joins the search by 7:00 a.m., calling Amelia's friends, checking Facebook and Instagram for any sign of activity. Jessica arrives within minutes, her face pale with worry. "She was supposed to text me when she got home," Jessica tells Rosa, her own hands shaking as she dials mutual friends. "She always texts me when she gets home from late shifts." But the first 48 hours passed with no sign of Amelia, and investigators knew the trail was already growing cold, along with any hope of bringing her home alive. Detective Robert Tran arrives at Mel's Diner at 8:45 a.m., his weathered face grim as he surveys the scene. At 53 he's worked dozens of missing persons cases, and he knows the statistics. The first 48 hours are critical, and they're already burning through precious time. He's also a father of 2 daughters, and something about Rosa Diaz's raw terror makes his chest tighten with paternal dread. "Tell me about your daughter," he says gently, settling Rosa into the diner's back booth while crime scene techs process Amelia's car. "She's responsible," Rosa whispers, tears streaming down her cheeks. "She's never late, never forgets to call. Something terrible has happened to her, Detective. I can feel it." By noon, a full task force has assembled. Officers fan out across Highway 61, checking every business, every wooded area, every ditch and culvert where someone might hide a body. Search and rescue volunteers arrive with their dogs, methodically combing through the dense Louisiana underbrush that stretches for miles in every direction. The evidence is frustratingly sparse but telling. Inside Amelia's Honda Civic, forensic technician Sarah Chen discovers several fingerprints on the exterior driver's side door handle, smudged but potentially viable for comparison. The interior shows no signs of struggle, no blood, no indication that Amelia was harmed inside her own vehicle. "It's like she got out willingly," Chen tells Detective Tran as she carefully bags the evidence, or someone she trusted asked her to step away from the car. At 2:30 p.m., a breakthrough, long-haul trucker Billy Morrison calls the tip line after seeing Amelia's photo on the local news. "I was heading eastbound on 61 around 2:00 a.m., he tells Detective Tran over the phone, his voice gravelly from years of cigarettes and highway diesel. Morrison's account sends chills through the investigation team. Why would Amelia be walking along Highway 61 at 2:00 a.m.? Did her car break down? Did someone offer her a ride? The questions multiply faster than the answers. Detective Tran interviews Amelia's boyfriend David Hernandez for 3 hours. David is 22, a junior at LSU studying business, and he's clearly devastated by Amelia's disappearance. He provides a solid alibi. He was at his apartment with 2 roommates, playing video games until 3:00 a.m., and willingly submitted to a polygraph test, which he passed easily. "She was happy," David tells Tran, his voice thick with emotion. "We were talking about moving in together next year, maybe getting engaged after graduation. She had plans, Detective, big plans. She wouldn't just disappear." The diner's security footage reveals nothing useful. The camera angle shifts away from the parking lot at exactly the wrong moment, leaving a 90-second gap that might as well be 90 years. The footage from before and after shows nothing suspicious. No strange vehicles, no lurking figures, no indication that anyone was watching or waiting for Amelia. But there is one promising lead: tire tracks near the back of the diner's parking lot, pressed deep into the soft earth after recent rain. The tread pattern suggests a large truck or SUV, and the tracks appear fresh, possibly from the night Amelia disappeared. Unfortunately, the impressions are too degraded for a definitive match, but investigators carefully photograph and cast them anyway. Days turn into weeks, as Detective Tran and his team follow every possible lead. They interview Mel's Diner customers, check local hospitals and morgues, canvass truck stops and rest areas for hundreds of miles in every direction. They run Amelia's photo on regional news stations, distribute thousands of flyers, set up tip lines that ring constantly with well-meaning but ultimately useless information. 3 weeks into the investigation, the FBI joins the case, bringing federal resources and expertise in missing persons investigations. Special Agent Monica Rivera immediately recognizes the hallmarks of a predatory crime: a young woman alone at night, isolated location, no witnesses, mind disappearance. But even with federal involvement, the leads continue to evaporate like morning mist on highways. But just as investigators felt they were closing in on answers, the trail vanished into silence, leaving only questions that would haunt everyone involved for the next 12 years. By Christmas 2011, the search for Amelia Diaz had officially moved to the cold case files, though Detective Tran refuses to let anyone use those words around Rosa and Carmen. The family maintains a desperate kind of normalcy. Carmen finishes her junior year of high school. Rosa returns to her job at the elementary school, but Amelia's absence fills every corner of their small brick house like a physical presence. Amelia's bedroom remains exactly as she left it, nursing textbooks stacked on her desk, her LSU sweatshirt draped over her desk chair, photos of friends and family covering her mirror. Rosa changes the sheets every week and dusts the furniture, as if preparing for her daughter's return. Carmen often falls asleep on Amelia's bed, clutching her sister's favorite pillow, breathing in the fading scent of her vanilla perfume. I dream about her every night, Carmen tells the grief counselor Rosa finally agrees to see in March 2012. Sometimes she's trying to tell me something important, but I can never understand what she's saying. I wake up feeling like I've failed her all over again. Rosa's health begins to deteriorate under the weight of endless worry. She develops chronic insomnia, lying awake night after night replaying that terrible Monday, searching for some clue she might have missed. She stops eating regularly, loses 20 pounds, and develops stress-related heart palpitations that land her in the emergency room twice. Every September 12th, the anniversary of Amelia's disappearance, the family holds a vigil at Mel's Diner. The first year draws hundreds of community members, local reporters, and volunteers who still hope Amelia might be found alive. By the 5th anniversary, the crowd has dwindled to a handful of family friends and Detective Tran, who never misses the annual gathering, despite his retirement. The media attention fades gradually, then completely. Local news stations stop running Amelia's photo on the anniversary. The missing person posters that once covered every telephone pole and storefront window in Baton Rouge curl and fade, eventually disappearing entirely. Life moves on for everyone except the Diaz family, frozen in perpetual September. Carmen struggles through high school and college, battling anxiety and depression that she attributes directly to her sister's disappearance. She changes her major 3 times, unable to focus on building a future when the past remains so unresolved. She sees Amelia in every young woman walking alone at night, hears her voice in crowded restaurants, and still instinctively saves funny memes and sister jokes to share before remembering there's no one to share them with. The worst part is not knowing, Carmen tells a documentary filmmaker in 2018, 7 years after Amelia's disappearance. Is she suffering somewhere? Is she dead? Did she run away and start a new life? Not knowing is like a cancer that just keeps growing. Detective Tran, even in retirement, never fully closes the file. He keeps copies of all the evidence in his home office, periodically reviewing witness statements and forensic reports, hoping some detail might suddenly make sense. He attends law enforcement conferences on cold case resolution, stays current on advances in forensic science, and maintains contact with the FBI agents who worked Amelia's case. Some cases just get under your skin, he explained to his wife in 20. That girl had her whole life ahead of her. Someone out there knows what happened to her, and I can't stand the thought of them getting away with it. In 2020, the Louisiana State Police launched a cold case initiative, using federal grant money to re-examine unsolved crimes with new technology and fresh perspectives. Amelia's case is selected for review, along with 43 other missing persons and homicide investigations dating back to the 90s. But what no one knew was that one tiny piece of overlooked evidence was sitting in storage waiting for technology to catch up to justice, and for science to finally give Amelia Diaz the voice she'd lost on that humid September night. Detective Sarah Martinez takes over the Amelia Diaz cold case in January 2022, bringing fresh eyes and 11 years of experience in forensic investigation. At 34, she's built a reputation for tenacious casework and has successfully solved 6 cold cases using advanced DNA analysis and genetic genealogy techniques that didn't exist when Amelia first disappeared. Science has completely revolutionized since 2011, Martinez explains to Rosa and Carmen during their first meeting in February 2022. We can now extract usable DNA profiles from evidence that was previously considered worthless. We can build family trees from genetic databases and track down suspects through their relatives, voluntary DNA submissions. The breakthrough comes on August 15, 2022, when forensic geneticist Dr. Amanda Foster successfully extracts a partial DNA profile from sweat residue found on Amelia's car door handle, the same evidence that had been sitting in storage for over a decade. The sample is degraded and incomplete, but it's enough to run through the combined DNA index system, TODIS, and newer genetic genealogy databases. "We got a hit," Dr. Foster calls Martinez at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon, her voice tight with excitement. "It's not a direct match, but we have a familial connection through a third cousin who submitted their DNA to ancestry websites. I can build a family tree from this." For the next 6 months, Dr. Foster and her team construct an intricate genetic family tree, working backward through marriage records, birth certificates, and census data to identify potential suspects who share DNA markers with the sample from Amelia's car. The process is painstakingly slow, requiring verification of every family connection and careful elimination of female relatives and men who were too young or too old to be viable suspects. By February 2023, they've narrowed the field to 3 potential suspects, all living within 50 miles of Baton Rouge. One is eliminated immediately. He was deployed overseas in 2011. The second died in 2019, but his DNA is obtained from medical records and rules him out completely. The third suspect is Marcus Webb. Webb is 45 years old, divorced, employed as a maintenance supervisor at a chemical plant in Plaquemine, Louisiana. He lives alone in a modest ranch house on Sycamore Street, just 12 miles from Mel's Diner. His work schedule in 2011 had him working day shifts, meaning he would have been free during the overnight hours when Amelia disappeared. Detective Martinez begins careful surveillance of Webb in early March 2023, documenting his daily routines and habits. He's a creature of routine. Same gas station every morning, same grocery store every Friday, same bar every Saturday night. He drives a large pickup truck, consistent with the tire impressions found at the diner, though those impressions were too degraded for a definitive comparison. On March 10, 2023, Martinez gets the break she's been waiting for. Webb throws away a coffee cup at a gas station, and Martinez retrieves it for DNA comparison. 5 days later, Foster calls with confirmation. Marcus Webb's DNA is a perfect match for the sweat residue found on Amelia Diaz's car door handle. But the DNA isn't their only evidence. In March 2023, a new witness emerged, someone whose memory was finally triggered by seeing Webb's photo in a police lineup. Maria Santos, who worked the overnight shift at a truck stop 2 miles from Mel's Diner, contacts police after recognizing Webb from surveillance photos. "I remember him," Santos tells Martinez during a recorded interview. "He came in around 2:30 that night, September 12, 2011. I remember because he was acting strange, nervous, sweaty, kept looking over his shoulder. He bought cigarettes and an energy drink, paid cash, and left quickly. I thought it was weird because he usually came in during the day shift and was always friendly. That night he barely looked at me." Santos's testimony provides the final piece Martinez needs. Webb's DNA places him in Amelia's car, and Santos places him in the area at the time of the disappearance, exhibiting suspicious behavior that she found memorable enough to recall 12 years later. And then, after 12 years of waiting, sleepless nights, and unanswered prayers, the name of Amelia's killer finally surfaced from the shadows, where he'd been hiding in plain sight. At 6:15 a.m. on March 15, 2023, Detective Martinez leads a team of 6 officers to Marcus Webb's house on Sycamore Street. The suburban neighborhood is quiet in the early morning light, with only a few commuters backing out of their driveways and children waiting for school buses on street corners. None of Webb's neighbors have any idea they're about to witness the end of one of Louisiana's longest-running missing persons cases. Webb answers his door in pajama pants and a t-shirt, his graying hair disheveled from sleep. Martinez will later describe the moment their eyes meet. "I saw recognition immediately. He knew exactly why we were there." "Marcus Webb, you're under arrest for the kidnapping and murder of Amelia Rosa Diaz," Martinez announces, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "You have the right to remain silent." Webb doesn't resist, doesn't protest his innocence, doesn't demand to see a lawyer. He simply holds out his hands for the handcuffs, his face pale and resigned. As officers lead him to the patrol car, his neighbor Mrs. Henderson watches from her kitchen window, unable to process what she's seeing. Marcus has lived next door for 8 years, Henderson later tells reporters. He's quiet, Keeps to himself, but he's always been polite. He helped me carry groceries when I broke my ankle. I just can't believe this. The arrest makes national news within hours. Rosa and Carmen Diaz learn about it from Detective Martinez's phone call at 7:30 a.m. And for the first time in 12 years, Rosa's tears are tears of relief rather than despair. I knew this day would come, Rosa tells reporters outside her home. Carmen's arm wrapped around her shoulders. I never stopped believing we would find out what happened to our Amelia. Now maybe we can finally have some peace. Webb's trial begins 6 months later in September 2023, exactly 12 years after Amelia's disappearance. The courtroom is packed with family members, community volunteers who searched for Amelia, and reporters covering the case that captivated Louisiana for over a decade. Prosecutor Jennifer Walsh methodically presents the evidence. Webb's DNA on Amelia's car, Maria Santos's eyewitness testimony, placing him in the area during suspicious circumstances, and cell phone records showing his device pinging towers near Mel's Diner on the night of September 2011, records that weren't examined until the case was reopened. Marcus Webb encountered Amelia Diaz as she was leaving work. Walsh tells the jury during her opening statement, "We may never know exactly what he said to convince her to step away from her car, but we know he was there. His DNA proves it. His behavior that night proves it, and his silence for 12 years, while a family suffered unimaginable grief, proves his guilt." Webb's defense attorney, Robert Chen, argues that the DNA evidence is circumstantial and could have been transferred innocently. My client may have bumped into Ms. Diaz's car door at some point, possibly days or weeks before her disappearance. Chen tells the jury, DNA transfer can happen through indirect contact. This evidence doesn't prove murder, it doesn't even prove they ever spoke to each other. But the jury isn't convinced by the defense's arguments. After deliberating for just 4 hours, they return with a unanimous verdict, guilty of second-degree murder. When the foreman reads the verdict, Rosa Diaz collapses into Carmen's arms. 12 years of grief and uncertainty, finally releasing in a flood of tears. Carmen looks directly at Webb, who sits motionless at the defense table, and whispers words only her family can hear. "Now you can rest, Hermana. Now you can finally rest." Justice had finally been served, but the scars of Amelia's disappearance would remain forever, carved deep into the hearts of everyone who loved her. Marcus Webb receives a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole, but he never reveals what happened to Amelia's body. Despite extensive searches of properties connected to Webb and plea negotiations, offering a reduced sentence in exchange for information, Amelia's remains have never been found. For Rosa and Carmen, this remains the one unanswered question in a case that finally found resolution. "We have justice," Rosa says during a victim impact statement at Webb's sentencing, "but we still don't have our daughter and sister back. Somewhere out there, Amelia is waiting to come home, and Marcus Webb is the only person who can tell us where she is. I pray that someday his conscience will finally speak louder than his selfishness." The Amelia Diaz case has become a powerful example of how advances in forensic science can breathe new life into cold cases that seemed impossible to solve. Detective Martinez, who was promoted to sergeant following Webb's conviction, now speaks at law enforcement conferences about the importance of preserving evidence and the potential for genetic genealogy to crack decades-old mysteries. Amelia's case reminds us that we should never give up. Martinez tells a room full of investigators at a 2024 cold case symposium, "Technology will continue to evolve. Witnesses may come forward years later, and sometimes the smallest piece of evidence, a single drop of sweat on a door handle, can change everything." The Louisiana State Police have expanded their cold case initiative, using Amelia's case as proof of concept for applying new resources to old investigations. 57 additional cases have been reopened since Webb's arrest, and 6 have resulted in arrests or significant new leads. Carmen Diaz, now 28, has become an advocate for families of missing persons, working with organizations that provide support and resources to people navigating the nightmare of uncertainty. She speaks frequently about the importance of never giving up hope, even when years pass without answers. The Diaz family has established the Amelia Rosa Diaz Memorial Scholarship at LSU, providing financial assistance to nursing students who demonstrate academic excellence and community service. The scholarship ensures that Amelia's dream of helping others lives on, even though she never had the chance to fulfill it herself. Rosa Diaz, now in her 60s, has found a measure of peace that seemed impossible during those dark years of not knowing. She still keeps Amelia's room exactly as it was, but now it feels less like a shrine to tragedy and more like a celebration, in a life that, though cut short, made a lasting impact on everyone who knew her. Amelia's story reminds us that justice delayed is not justice denied, that somewhere in every cold case file sits the potential for breakthrough, for closure, for families to finally find the answers they've been seeking. Her case proves that advances in science, combined with the dedication of investigators who refuse to give up, can reach across decades to hold killers accountable for their crimes. If this story has moved you, if you believe in the power of persistence and the importance of never forgetting victims like Amelia, please subscribe to our channel and share this video with others. In our next episode, we'll explore another chilling cold case that stunned investigators when the killer was finally identified. A case involving a missing college student, a decades-old photograph, and a breakthrough that came from an unexpected source. You won't believe how this one ends. The search for Amelia Diaz lasted 12 years, but her legacy of hope, persistence, and the unbreakable bonds of family will last forever.